what happens after we die. So there's a slight difference.
So Rich, you've been investigating for quite some time. I think it's like old school and new school. Back in the day it was old school, and obviously now it's new school. Is there anything? What is it about the investigating techniques today that you think are superior to the investigating techniques, back in the day, and vice versa?
Oh, wow. Technology in a lot of cases. Obviously, we have 20 megapixel cameras. Back in the day, we had a 35 millimeter camera or a 110 camera. So, obviously the technology. Back in the day, we had a micro cassette recorder. Today, we've got voice recorders that we can absolutely directly upload to a computer. Back in the day, it was hard to find other people with a similar mindset. Today, you can simply Facebook or do a Google search, and you can literally find thousands of paranormal groups out there.
Exactly.
So that would be the main difference. So I sometimes want to go back to the old school ways because we need to be able to interact with other people face to face. That being said, I would absolutely not 100% rely on the technology, but realize that it is a valuable tool whenever we do research in this with the paranormal phenomenon.
One of the things that I've personally found in my evolution in doing this work is that I actually don't really use instruments anymore. If someone else has an EVP recorder, that's fine. But I just use me as my main investigative tool. I listen, I feel, I sense. I'm an empath and a psychic. And I'll walk into a situation, and within 5 minutes I'll be able to size up as to whether or not there's any activity there, any errant energy of any kind, or anything out of place. And also use that same technique to determine whether the client, the people who have contacted us, are going through some type of emotional situation that maybe they're attributing to the paranormal, even though it's not.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly with that. I know people that rely so much on technology, they can't necessarily see the forest for the trees. I'll give you an example. Last year, I went on a dolphin watch with my family at a beach, and turns out that there was a lady. What she was doing, she was more interested in videotaping the dolphin watch than actually experiencing it.
Yeah.
She lost the moment. So, it's good to have that technology, but not to rely upon it too much. A lot of the times, what we're going to do is, if we're really wanting to find something bad enough, we're going to find it. An example I was thinking of was Sidonia and the face on Mars.
Yeah.
Remember back in '76, I think it was the Viking 1 probe that took the picture of the infamous face on Mars. People thought it was absolute proof of extraterrestrial intelligence. And then in 2001, another photograph had been taken, and it had simply been a mountain range. And it was simply, according to some, a shadow. It was simply just a shadow. So it wasn't an actual face.
Well, it's the concept of matrixing. The mind wants to organize what it sees into some form that it can define. And that looked like a face based on the angle of the picture and the shadows and everything else. And the mind takes that. But I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he started a thing called the Enterprise Project, and he was like the forerunner, the forebearer of all of this information about the Sidonia on Mars and the pyramids on Mars and the 37.5-degree angle between everything and how it corresponds to the pyramids on Earth. And it was James. I can't remember his name. I thought it was James something, but perhaps you remember, Rich. I don't remember. But there was a whole community that grew out of this, and the conspiracy, and NASA was trying to hide this and what have you. But is there something on Mars? I have a feeling that when we actually get there, we're going to find some stuff there. I'm sorry?
I can't guarantee it, but I'd agree with you.
Yeah, my sense is that Mars and the Earth were at one time sister planets and/or part of the same planet, and were created by a collision, took the atmosphere that Earth has and took it away from Mars, and that there may have been life on Mars per se. So, but getting back to the whole thing about investigations, my take on it today is that you have two types of people who do this work: people who've been doing it for a long time, like Chris and myself and yourself, people who really care about helping people in their homes. And, when someone calls up and says, I think my house is haunted, they're scared normally when they contact you. There's an issue going on. And
you have a great deal of publicity associated with it.
Absolutely. And going in there, it's not about running around and finding evidence. It's about finding the truth, whatever the truth may be. And if the truth is that there's an emotional situation taking place, well, that has to be determined, and the appropriate referrals and help have to be provided. If it's an environmental thing, I can't tell you how many homes we've gone into and found bad electrical wiring with poor earth grounds, and poor earth grounds resulting in higher levels of electromagnetic energy, which can cause irritation, paranoia, all the feelings associated with, quote-unquote, being haunted. And because I have a background as an electrician, I'm not a licensed electrician, but I do have a background in electrical wiring, I've grounded homes and gotten rid of that stuff for people. So, finding the truth is the truth. And finding something that isn't there is a great disservice. And a lot of these young amateur run around trying to find evidence and beat the other ones up teams. Their only thing is about finding evidence and not really about helping the people feel comfortable in their homes. And Chris and I constantly have strong opinions about that, right, Chris?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's going to be the next question. But before we go there, Vic, the problem is with all these younger teens, I guess, or new, and they don't have to be young kids, just new to the paranormal investigating. It's not about helping people. It's about, their thrill. It's about, it's a thrill for them, and that kind of sucks because they're not doing the community any service whatsoever.
I call it shits and giggles investigations.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And, Vic, going back to what you were saying about how when you could, you just walk into a place and in 5 minutes you can size it up. See, that's the difference between, I would say, paranormal investigators and psychic investigators.
Yeah.
Because I've gotten to the point where I don't even consider myself a paranormal investigator anymore. Yeah. We have a team. We go out there. I'm a psychic investigator. I do the psychic work, and I just, it's hard for me to just work with all the equipment. That's what we have team members for, to work the equipment. And I believe that you and I are there, to do the psychic work and to see what we feel and then try and improve it with our equipment. Okay, now, Rich, we have a question in the chat room from Lisa, and she wants to know what your opinion is on orbs.
Okay, honestly, what you were saying earlier about the electromagnetic energy, I think in some cases when the orbs are simply an indication that there is something there. It may not necessarily be a full-blown apparition. How to be a ghost hunter goes into the different types of things that show up on the camera, the orbs, the vortexes, the misty forms, and things like that. Orbs is a good indicator that there is something there, but again, what we've got to do is rule out other typical, non-paranormal activity that may actually be the explanation of it. I mean, is it dust? That was one of the big things. Whenever I would go into an older area that hadn't been walked through in a long time, there would be a layer of dust. If I would go through and take a picture, sometimes the dust would actually appear like an orb. So we have to be able to rule that out. I've seen hundreds of pictures of orbs, and it's amazing, in my opinion. But I've got to be able to discern whether it's truly an orb or whether it is something more contemporary, more explainable. But
I'm not a huge believer in orbs. Okay, there are some that kind of blow me away that I believe in. But I'll say this, there have been many times, I'm going to say probably 100 times where I've said there's a spirit here, and they take a picture and you get an orb. Now, is that coincidence? I don't know, but I'm feeling like there's a spirit there, and we get that. Okay, right. One particular time, I was on the Maury show, and we were doing an investigation of the Maury studios, and we spent the night there. And there's a famous psychic named Jeffrey Wands, okay? And I said to him, listen, there's a spirit up in the steps, and it's just like a huge ball of energy. And he says, I don't see it. You don't know what you're talking about. I said, Jeffrey, walk up there. Please, just walk up there. I'm telling you, there's a huge ball of energy up there. And he walked up. I said, stop. I said, now put your hands up. And he did. When we took the picture, we got this giant red ball of energy that it looked like he was holding. which they had on the show, and it was amazing. I don't have the picture anymore because I used to date a girl named Satan, and she deleted everything. But yeah, it was actually on the Maury Povey show where you see him. It looks like he's actually holding up a giant ball of red energy. So, you know, the people that say that all orbs are bullshit and that they're all, you know, dust or moisture or bugs, I know. I believe that a lot of them are. I mean, most of them. I would say 90-some-odd% are nothing. But there are those ones that, you know, things that make you go, you know, you have to look deeper into some of it, and I believe that.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. There is something paranormal, but sometimes a shadow is just a shadow.
Right.
So, I mean,
you know,
that's where the investigation kicks in. You've got to be able to weed out the normal from the paranormal.
Absolutely.
As for orbs, yes, I believe in them, and I believe it's a strong indication that there may be a haunting, just like what you were talking about the red orb.
Now, Lisa in our chat room, our friend Lisa asks, how can you tell if it's an orb and not dust? And Lisa, I think we have to come up with a definition. An orb is a circle, a ball. Right. It can be anything. You can have a ball and call it an orb. The definition of an orb being something that's not something related to reflection off dust, reflection off of an insect, something material flying around a room, is an orb of energy. So we have to define what the substance of the orb is. If we say an energy orb, that's something else. An energy orb could be something that's kicked off by static electricity. It could be something that is spiritual in nature. And the only way to really define it, as our friend Angelo from Casper Investigation said, take multiple pictures, different angles, see if it comes up the same way every time. But I think what a lot of people do is they get dust orbs and insect orbs, and again, the matrixing kicks in, and they look at the image and they immediately see a face. They see an eyeball. They see something that really isn't there because the mind wants to organize it into some recognizable form.
Exactly. You know, Victor, I'm glad you brought that up, the whole matrixing thing, because we've spoken about this on the show many times. You know, people send me pictures all the time to evaluate them. Chris, what do you think this is? You know, is it the shutter, whatever. They ask my opinion. You know, some people kind of think I'm an expert. All right. Most of the time, I tell them I believe it's matrixing, because when I look at the pictures, you know, it can be a face, but you know, you got patterns on the wall. You know, it's matrixing, and people are. I think that people want so much for things to be paranormal.
Absolutely.
They want it. You know, in their hearts, they want it and they believe it.
Absolutely.
Okay, but if it's not paranormal, it's not paranormal. And you know, I can't tell you how many times people get mad at me, angry, when I tell them, I'm sorry, I don't believe it's paranormal. Yeah. Oh, what the hell do you know? What do I know? You sent me the picture, you moron. What do I know? I don't know. Sorry, man.
No, Rich, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I agree wholeheartedly. I understand. I've had people send me emails and talk with me about it. And once I took time to actually look at the photographs and actually been able to look at the bigger picture, so to speak, and sometimes it's not actually a haunting. And that's where the paranormal investigation kicks in. We almost try to disprove a haunting, and once we've worked through all of the possible scenarios and still don't have an explanation, that's whenever I would determine it's paranormal. With the ghost hunting, I think there's research done, and I think there's a lot of good research done, but I don't know if it's as detailed as with paranormal investigation. Paranormal investigations, my gosh, they can last weeks or even months. Ghost hunting, not so much.
Yeah. I think that, in all honesty, in the investigations that I've been involved in, I'm not talking about public investigations where you go to the mansions and so on and so forth. I'm talking about private homes. People have called us up. I think that 90% of them have been explained as either being emotional or environmental, and only about 10% have actually had spiritual activity taking place. Chris, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. You know, I agree with pretty much everything you say, Victor.
No, but I wanted your you don't have to agree with me. I just wanted your commentary on that.
No, I absolutely agree.
Rich, has that been your experience, about 90% non-paranormal?
Non-paranormal.
90% non-paranormal, yes.
Yeah. And of those, the majority of them, in my experience, have either been emotional or environmental. And quite frankly, the majority of them have been emotional. So it seems that people have a tendency to